Welcome to 805 Sports Talk. Getting right into it, the place to be Tuesday night was Paisolo Pavilion on the Lompoc High School campus. Lorenzo and I both called the girls-boys basketball doubleheader. Huge Los Padres League basketball game on the girls' side, and Cabrillo came out on top with a 36-33 win. We saw that game. It was back and forth. Lompoc had a late lead. Cabrillo came from behind and pulled out the win. Haley Batty hit a big shot late. Aaron Jenkins sealed it with a late free throw. Braves couldn't hit a last-second shot. And that was just a huge win for the Conqs. They moved to 5-0 in the LPL. Those teams split the league championship last year, and Lompoc is going to have to beat Cabrillo at Cabrillo next month to force a split league championship. So we got some highlights from that game.
Brittany McCune was certainly a factor in the game Tuesday night, dumping off a pass to Alyssa Stewart for 2 points here. Cheyenne Marmolejo then came up with a steal and scored over Aaron Jenkins for 2 points for Lompoc. McCune assisted on Armani Childress's three-point shot that got the bounce, giving Cabrillo a 14-9 lead. In the low-scoring game, every bucket counted. Cheyenne Marmolejo set up the offense. Siobhan Garrett passed to Shai Kendrick. Kendrick found Marmolejo for a two-point basket, cutting into Cabrillo's lead. On an inbounds play, McCune put up a shot and scored, putting Cabrillo up 21-17. On another inbounds play, Danielle Morgan found Marmolejo. Marmolejo put up a three and scored to tie the game at 24. Then Layla Richardson found Shai Kendrick for a huge three-point shot, giving Lompoc a 27-24 lead heading into the fourth quarter. Brittany McCune had a huge fourth quarter, scoring 6 points. Aaron Jenkins finds McCune. On the inbounds play, McCune drives on Sienna Garrett and is fouled. McCune would hit both free throws to cut into Lompoc's lead, 27-26. McCune finished with 8 points on the night. Lompoc's half-court offense was efficient in the fourth quarter. Here, Shai Kendrick finds Sienna Garrett for 2 points in the low post. That gave Lompoc a 29-28 lead late in the fourth quarter. Late in the game, McCune drove and was fouled and would hit both free throws to give Cabrillo a late 30-29 lead. With the game tied at 30, Cheyenne Marmolejo came up with the steal, and it looked like the Braves would take a lead as Sienna Garrett spun and scored inside, but she was called for a travel. Then it was Alyssa Stewart's time to shine. She sank a huge three to put Cabrillo up 33-30. But it wasn't over yet. Shai Kendrick came back with another three to tie the game at 33 all. Haley Batty then hit a big shot. Aaron Jenkins made one of two free throws. Danielle Morgan was not able to get off a late shot, and Cabrillo won 36-33.
So, Lorenzo, we knew the girls' game was going to be good after what they did last year. We were not expecting the boys' side of the action to be a close game, but we were, pleasantly surprised with how close that game was. Kind of break down that boys' basketball game from Tuesday night.
You know what? I mean, I mentioned it throughout the broadcast. It's like in a game like Cabrillo and Lompoc, you just throw out all the records. I mean, one team won't care about being 2-15, and then one team won't care about being undefeated in league. It's more about who gets the city bragging rights. And credit to Lompoc. I mean, here I was immediately, and I mean, I'm sure I wasn't the only one. Immediately, I thought that this was pretty much dead on the ground, Lompoc's season. But credit to Elliot Davis, credit to the players of Lompoc for coming out with that scrapper, us against the world attitude, and really, really humbling Cabrillo on this night and making it clear that the road to the LPL title, it's not going to be a lot easier than what Cabrillo players might be thinking.
Now, Cabrillo came out with a 46-39 win. They moved to 5-0 in the LPL. I think there were a number of interesting players from that game. Cameron Davis from the Lompoc side, he took over that game for Lompoc. He was a bit surprising with the way he played, and he almost willed them back to a win. And we also had Jordan Tyler was big for Cabrillo, and of course LeAndrew Knight. Who do you think was a key player, pulling out that win for Cabrillo?
What's crazy, Joe, is that I'm used to seeing LeAndrew Knight go off for like 25, 30 points. I felt like last night was his worst shooting performance. I mean, Elliot Davis had a brilliant game plan with trying to rattle him, trying to force him into some bad shots, and for the longest time he went cold from the three-point line, which is something I'm rarely used to seeing. But Jordan Tyler, to his credit, providing that interior presence, and obviously being 6'7" and in an area like the Central Coast, you're not going to have too many peers. But Tyler at the right moments, especially that thunderous dunk in the fourth quarter, just really took over that game when it mattered the most. Now, you mentioned Cameron Davis, Joe. I mean, I was impressed by how not only how quick he was to the hoop, but just being able to find those holes in the Cabrillo defense, which is something that a lot of opponents have a hard time with.
Now, one more thing on that matchup. Lompoc didn't have a good record coming into that one. They lost Ben Odom. Do you think this can kind of spark Lompoc? Do you think they can, make a push for the playoffs? I know, they're not doing well in league. Do you think they can, turn this thing around with the little time they have left?
It's the ultimate confidence booster if you're Lompoc. I mean, just if your season, if there's ever a moment where you wanted to turn your season around, this was that moment. I mean, being in front of your home crowd, getting that energy going, and being the first LPL team to really challenge Cabrillo, which is looking more and more like the LPL champ or the heavy favorite to win the LPL. So, I mean, I know it's a very young team. You got freshmen like Vesey Tawa, you got Ryan Morgan, some of your other guys who are sophomores, but, this definitely is that much-needed confidence booster for the Braves moving forward as they try to make at least a push for the playoffs.
All right, Kenny, you were also, covering some LPL boys basketball Tuesday night. You saw Santa Maria pull out a win. Where do you think the Saints are at right now? Can they finish third in the league? Do you think they can maybe, knock off Morro Bay, who might seem to be the second-place team? Where do you think the Saints are, in that LPL standings right now?
I think they have a legitimate chance to beat both Morro Bay and Santa Ynez. To be fair, I have not seen Morro Bay nor Santa Ynez. The thing about Santa Maria is you're always wary of teams that rely so much on the three-point shot, because generally if the threes don't fall, they're not going to be successful. Yet Santa Maria's three-pointers fall game after game after game. I can't remember a game, in fact, this year when they've made less than 10 three-pointers. Even in the league game they lost against Cabrillo, they made several three-pointers. They made 13 last night. Templeton just did not match up well at all, I thought, against Santa Maria. Santa Maria does not have much height, but Templeton does not have much height. They have one inside player who had decent height. He did score 10 points in the first half. He did not score in the second half. But Templeton play the same up-tempo style as Santa Maria does. And most teams, except for Cabrillo, if you try to play up-tempo with Santa Maria, you're not going to win that. To be honest, I'm not sure what style Santa Ynez plays. I don't know if they're more half-court or if they're more fast-paced. I would not say a Santa Maria win is necessarily automatic against both, but I do think they have a decent chance against both. Although, if either team does have, say, two good inside players, that could pose a problem for Santa Maria. That has been a problem for them in the past, if the team has pretty good height, just because Santa Maria doesn't have much height at all. But I do think Santa Maria has a decent chance, yes.
No, I think the interesting thing with the Saints this year is how balanced they've been. We thought Blake Truitt might be that key guy this year, but it seems like Joey Navarez has stepped up. They've had just so many number of guys that have led them in scoring. What has impressed you most about Santa Maria? Their depth, just their ability to hit those threes. What do you think it is that Santa Maria's strongest?
At this point, really, I think their defense is, if last night is an indication, their defense is coming along. Their defense looked the best, by far the best that I've ever seen it looked. Poor Templeton, except for one stretch in the second quarter, they really couldn't get into any offensive rhythm at all. And Templeton's not bad when they have some shooters who can hit. I would say, though, on a consistent basis, yes, just the regularity in which they make those three-pointers. I mean, consistently more than 10 a game. That's unusual. I think Joey Navarez is their best shooter, but they have several other people who can hit maybe 2, 3, or more three-pointers a game. And they do have a guy who can drive inside Blake Truitt.
Now we gotta take a time out from the local stuff and talk about the big national topic from Monday night. The college football season is officially over. I know, Elliot, you were following the national championship game. game Monday night. We almost had another overtime situation there, but Clemson was able to put that game away and get the win over Alabama. What did you think about that game and just the way Clemson was able to come back? I think they scored 21 fourth quarter points there.
That was an Alabama victory for 3 quarters. We have the TV on here, and you're kind of listening, and you're working on the next day's newspaper, so you're not just sitting there staring at it, but you tune yourself to the cheers, so that when you hear the announcers go crazy. And it was really kind of quiet through 3 quarters, and then all of a sudden, everything went wild in that fourth quarter, and it looked like Clemson might be able to pull it out. And then instantly, Alabama comes back and retakes the lead, and you're thinking, well, there's Alabama, there's not much time left. And then the Clemson comes back, and it's like, whoa, how did they do that? And now there's almost no time left on the clock. Deshaun Watson's got the ball. Do they do the old, remember years ago, Ara Parseghian settled for that 10-10 tie? It was against Michigan State.
Right, I thought less of Parseghian.
Yeah, it was awful.
I still like him, but I thought
they could
less
just.
of him.
There's almost no time on the clock. They can get another playoff. They could take the safe field goal and go for overtime, and they went for it and scored the touchdown. It was crazy. And then that onside kick at the end that you had to get a real good look at it. I thought, oh, they blew that because they didn't go 10 yards, but then you looked at it and it went 11 yards and the kicker circled around the ball and he got it, sealed the deal. It was like a crazy ending, and it was probably one of the best, if not the best, championship games that you'll ever see. It just right down to the wire. The funny thing is that after the game comes out, the ratings were down. And as games go on, they have the ratings change. And people get the word that the game is good, and all of a sudden the viewership goes up at the end of good games. But this happened so fast at the end of the fourth quarter, but the 3 scores that went Clemson, Alabama, Clemson, it was, I don't think people had a chance to tune in, and the ratings were actually down from the year before when the same 2 teams played another great game, and you thought Clemson might have a chance to beat that one, and that the high-scoring game, but Clemson came out. They hadn't won a championships. Danny Ford in about 1981.
Yep, 1981.
And it was there's a lot of Alabama haters. It's, you win. At first, when you start winning, people love you, and then they want somebody else to win. And now there are all these Alabama haters who were glad to see Clemson win. It was one of those games you hated to see anybody lose, but it was a great game. And highly entertaining, and it's the kind of thing where the people that put this college football playoff on are patting themselves on the back.
Yeah.
Although the week before the games were duds, and maybe that's what hurt the TV ratings, that the games before were duds, and you were thinking, well, maybe instead of like Washington and Ohio State, there should have been USC and Penn State.
I thought Ohio State should never have been in there.
Yeah, I said it last week.
Penn State was the league champion,
and
I guess you don't have to win a league championship to get into the playoffs. But I think either Penn State or Washington would have put up a better fight the week before.
Yeah.
USC and Penn State would have put up a better fight the week before. So those games were duds, and that may have hurt them, but it turned out to be just an amazing ending to a football game. It was kind of a sleeper with Alabama's going to win again, and then all heck broke loose in that fourth quarter, and it turned out to be one of the most exciting games you'll ever see.
I worked during most of the game, but I got to see the most exciting part.
Yeah,
Same here. Elliot and I were on pins and needles.
4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah, we're talking to coaches. Monday night's now a big Pac-8 night. So we're talking, Kenny's at a game. Lorenzo and I are handling phone calls, talking to coaches to get their results into the paper. So we couldn't just sit there and stare at it. But when you hear the cheers, and then at the end of the game it started going crazy, then we stopped what we were doing and watched it. And it was just an amazing final and a great game. It was great for the sport.
Actually, the most impressive stat to me was Deshaun Watson graduating in 3 years. It takes can you imagine someone in his position? It just takes a super smart, super organized person to be able to pull that off.
And yet he didn't win the Heisman Trophy over a guy from Louisville who their team fizzled at the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
And the pros, they didn't like Tim Tebow as a pro quarterback. They don't think Watson is the number one draft pick or even the number one quarterback in the draft.
One of the best jokes was Lane Kiffin probably hitting up Nick Saban and asking, "Hey, you miss me yet?" But I mean, Elliot and I mean, we saw a really, really good football game. It's definitely, I would definitely put this as the greatest national title game I've ever seen. I would put it up there above the 2006 Rose Bowl, honestly.
I don't know. I mean, being USC playing Texas and LA, and the stars that were in that game,
That was
stars
a
on the
great
sideline.
game.
That's probably still number one for me. But Monday night was a lot of fun. And talking about Deshaun Watson, I was kind of cool on him. The last couple of years when he kind of burst onto the scene, I thought he was okay. But what he did Monday night and his performance in the last two national championship games were just amazing. And his post-game interviews are always a lot of fun to watch. He doesn't say a lot, but he praises God, and he kind of sticks to his roots. And the cool story that came out was that Warwick Dunn, who played at Florida State, was with the Bucks, gave his family a home, when he was younger, and kind of helped him get to where he is now, get to this point. That story kind of came out, and it was cool to see about that, and you really learn about where he comes from, and some of that humility that he has came from Warwick Dunn helping his family get a home back then. I thought that was a real cool story, and I think he's going to be a winner at the next level. He might not have all those tools that scouts look for, NFL teams look for, with the talent, with the reads, with some of those on the field things, but I think he's proven to be a winner. He beat Alabama in the national championship game this year, almost beat him last year, so that was a lot of fun, and Deshaun Watson really grew on me.
Well, Russell Wilson didn't get any respect in college,
Yeah.
and look, he's already won a Super Bowl as a young guy. I'm just kind of hoping that there's Watson falls far enough at the end of the first round where the Patriots can pick him up, groom him,
Good luck.
and then he could be the successor to Tom Brady.
This is coming from a guy with a background in scouting and all that. Well, Deshaun Watson just shredded an Alabama defense with 10 first-round picks, 5 first-round picks. So that should tell you all you need to know, that his boost, his stock is only going to go high from here.
Now, Deshaun Watson has been great at the college level. We're switching back to local sports now. We've had a great player to watch the last several years at the high school level in JoJo Walker. He was the male athlete of the week this week. He scored 45 points last Friday against Pioneer Valley. Kenny, starting with you, you've seen a lot of high school basketball over the years, over around 15 years of covering high school basketball. I've seen a lot of great players. Where do you think JoJo Walker ranks among some of the best high school players you've seen in the area?
Well, although I've seen a lot of JoJo, I probably haven't seen him at his best yet because I haven't seen him yet this year, and he's just crushing it this year.
Yeah.
Even from what I've seen, though, the really the only player on the Central Coast I've seen that can compare with him is Cam Walker. That's what I think anyway. Cam's brother Hunter Walker was also an outstanding high school player, but I would say the only one that I can remember who's even on even terms with JoJo would be Cameron Walker.
Yeah, I think JoJo Walker is the best scoring player I've ever seen in the area. Cameron Walker, he's about 6'7", a totally different player than him. He could do it all. But I think JoJo Walker might have him beat at the high school level in scoring. Scoring 45 points on a high school game in about 30 minutes is not easy to do. He's just been tremendous. He came back from that broken leg a couple of years ago. He's going to be playing at Portland. So just the job he's done has been incredible. Led them to a championship last year. He was our all-area MVP, but it seems like he's taken his game up a notch this year. And Wednesday, they play Atascadero at home against Elijah Cook. So that should be an interesting matchup to see how that plays out. Elijah Cook used to go to St. Joseph. That should be an interesting matchup. So if you're interested in that, check out the Santa Maria Times Thursday morning. See how those two players fare against each other. They're different players as well. Elijah Cook is about 6'5". But moving on to you, Elliot, you've seen a lot of basketball players. How do you feel about JoJo?
Okay, I think JoJo's right up there with Cameron Walker. It's sort of a toss-up for me, but I really like Cameron Walker as a player and as a student. He was a real good kid, and I've gotten to know JoJo because he wins Athlete of the Week at the Round Table, and you talk to him after that, and you start to get to know the kid. And he's a really good kid as well as a great basketball player, and I think both of them are slightly ahead of Hunter Walker. Now, there's a couple guys, though, that none of us got to see. I wasn't here at the time, and none of us were really around for the first guy. Well, although I was alive and so was Kenny back then, but Santa Maria High School, your alma mater, had a player named Steve Patterson. And he went to Santa Maria High School and went on to UCLA. Now, we all talk about the great John Wooden and that run of national championships, and they started it with a center who at the time was known as Lou Alcindor, now Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Hall of Famer on every level. High school from Power Memorial in New York, college at UCLA, pros with the Bucks and then the Lakers. And then they entered that run with another Hall of Famer, Bill Walton, as the center. But they won 2 national championships with a guy that nobody outside of Santa Maria seems to know, and that was Steve Patterson. He won 2 national championships at UCLA in that great John Wooden run. He was a great basketball player. I didn't get to see him play personally, but he has to rank right up there with the rest of them. And there's a guy from Lompoc High School that had a really great high school career, went on to a good college career. I think it was at Washington.
Joel Smith.
I'm talking about Mike Bratz first. Mike Bratz went on to play in the pros for a number of years. He's the assistant general manager with the Sacramento Kings. He was the last Chicago Bull to wear the number 23, other than before Michael Jordan. So when Jordan got there, they traded Bratz away. Jordan got the number 23, and now they have retired Jordan's 23, but it's also Mike Bratz's 23 too. So, and he's still active in the National Basketball Association, a longtime scout. I've gotten to know him very well over the years. He and Bill Burtker are great friends, and the two of them used to travel together when they were scouting there the last few years before Bratz went on to the assistant GM's job at the Kings. And he was a great high school basketball player. He's younger than I am, but I never got to see him because I was on the East Coast when these guys were playing. And Patterson was just ahead of me. I hate to say how old I am when he was at UCLA. So I was in college at the end of the UCLA run when Walton was there, and they beat Villanova one year. And the Villanova vacated that title because Howard Porter had signed a pro contract with Chicago, and he was a Villanova player while I was at Temple University. So I saw the end of that run on TV, but I didn't get to know those players. So, but those guys have to be up there. But for the younger ones, the modern players, JoJo, Cameron Walker, it's a toss-up for me.
Oh, well, you know, he didn't come to mind for some reason, but he's certainly right up there. I would say Chad Broadhead. He's graduated from Cabrillo. Wouldn't put him quite at Cameron and JoJo's level, but he's very close. I would say he's their caliber. Chad he could be a scoring machine, but he could also play defense, and he wasn't the tallest guy, but he rebounded pretty well.
This really is.
I would say he was up there in the top caliber.
This really is a terrific basketball area. I mean, you can argue, well, LA has a lot of talent, San Diego, the Central Valley. This really is a terrific basketball area. I mean, we've seen guys like Cameron Walker go from Rigetti over to Stanford, and we're seeing JoJo Walker right now with St. Joseph. I want to add, Marcus Jenkins was a very prominent star at Cabrillo. He not only went on to the Air Force Academy, but he's an assistant at the University of Richmond right now. So there's a lot of deep roots when it comes to round ball here in this area.
Yeah, I think JoJo's that key guy right now, but I think someone who's right on his heels is LeAndrew Knight. We saw him play the game against Lompoc Tuesday night. That was a lot of fun to see him make those heady plays, those crucial plays. You know, he missed a free throw late, but then he comes up with the steal and the rebound and scores to really put that game completely away. What do you think of what LeAndrew Knight does on the floor?
I'm a huge fan. I mean, again, I mentioned Marcus Jenkins' name, but I just feel like that. I feel like LeAndrew might be one of those players that Cabrillo hasn't seen in a very, very long time. And there's been some great players under Gary West's watch, and right now C.J. Simmons has his first great player under his watch in LeAndrew Knight. But you know, one of the great things that I noticed the most about LeAndrew Knight is that even though like he didn't have the best shooting night against Lompoc, I didn't see 1 ounce of frustration on his end. He knew that he had Jordan Tyler who was going to bail him out. he knew that some of his other black and gold teammates was going to bail him out. So his composure was at an all-time high last night, and I think that could take him very, very far.
And he still scored, what, 22 points?
22 points, and it was still on an off night.
And you just mentioned his coach, C.J. Simmons. He was a pretty good ball player in his
Yes, he
time,
was.
too, when he was playing down there. So you're right, there's a lot of talent here up and down the Central Coast.
Yeah.
And give JoJo's due. I think his shots improved
Yeah.
as his
Yeah.
time.
Everything's improved.
It seemed that he was a fine player, but it seemed earlier in his career he forced things sometimes as far as layups and so forth. But now, besides being very reliable when it comes to layups, he can hit the mid-range shot pretty well, and he knows how to jumpstart an offense. And last year, it seemed like when they needed a key basket most, he would usually be the one to make it.
Definitely. And I think he had 17 assists earlier in the year, tying the school record. I think Isaac Murillo had that record as well. So he can dish out the ball. And I think one guy we kind of forgot to mention who didn't go to school, directly in our coverage area, but Quentin Adlish scored 50 points against St. Joe. I saw that performance when he was playing for Mission Prep. I think it was 2 years ago. So that was quite a performance. I think Andrew Schmalbach also played at St. Joe, was really one of those players who was up there. I think he actually was an applicant or a potential candidate for McDonald's All-American. Cameron Walker also had that achievement. So there's been a number of guys.
Right,
Too many to
Adlish
name.
was
Yeah.
also a fine player.
One
He
other
used to
name,
go to
and
St. Joseph play
I
hard.
mean, I'm sure Kenny and you know this name pretty well down in San Ynez, who went on to UCLA, Matt McKinney, who is a 6'8" star, and he was neck and neck with Joel Smith out in Lompoc for top player in this region, and McKinney had a very stellar career at San Ynez.
Yeah, so it's fun to kind of go over some of those great basketball players that we've had in the area. So many great names, probably too many to list. So it was fun kind of going over that. But I think JoJo Walker is definitely etching his name among those
I
greats.
think he's up there, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And if we just wanted to sit here and list names, we'd be here for another half an hour
think
and
so, too.
still not get them all, because there's been some really great players, and we're just talking basketball. If we go to all the sports, we'd be here forever. You still leave somebody out.
Yeah.
Luke Nichols also comes to mind from
Oh yeah,
BCS.
BCA.
Yeah,
Can't forget about
BCA.
Luke Nichols,
Yeah.
one of the smaller school guys. But he was a great player as well.
He's among the top
Yeah.
rung.
So that's all we got for this week. Be sure to tune in next week. Be sure to tune in next week for our live broadcast. We did the doubleheader Tuesday night. We got some great live basketball action planned for you guys next week. So thank you guys for tuning in for another edition of 805 Sports Talk.